Hello, I'm Amy and I'm here to give another Greensboro Public Library book talk. This time I will be discussing Brian K. Vaughan and Pia Guerra's graphic novel, Why the Last Man, that was published from 2002 to 2008 by Vertigo, which was an imprint of DC Comics. Vertigo, now DC Black Label, was created so that adult-themed comic books and graphic novels could be somewhat separated from the general collection of DC Comics publications. That being said, this graphic novel is intended for mature audiences. What's the difference between a graphic novel and a comic book? Well, according to Neil Gaiman, graphic novels contain complete narratives, whether or not they're a part of a larger series. Comic books contain excerpts of serialized narratives, and graphic novels are usually a little bit longer. Did you know that Greensboro Public Library has comics, graphic novels, and manga? You can search by title or author, or you can type in the material type like comic books and browse the collection that way. So the main plot is fairly simple. Within a moment, every mammal with a Y chromosome drops dead, except Yorick and his capuchin monkey Ampersand. Of course, there are several subplots, but the majority of the story is spent on Yorick, the main protagonist, wanting to find his girlfriend Beth, and others wanting to figure out how Yorick survived this apparent androcide that occurred on July 17, 2002. Yorick is an aspiring magician who adopts a monkey with the intent to train him. His first course of action after the plague, which is called various things by different groups throughout the story, is to go to Washington, D.C. to find his mom, who is a U.S. representative. Beth is Yorick's girlfriend and in Australia at the time of the plague. Yorick proposes to her over the phone, which should give you a good idea as to how mature Yorick is at the beginning of the story. Fortunately, he has some character development involving maturing, but it is a little slow. Beth doesn't have nearly as big of a part in the graphic novel as she does in the TV adaptation that was unfortunately canceled after one season. Hero is Yorick's sister. She joins the Daughters of the Amazon, which is an extremist group that believes that nature caused the plague because Y chromosomes were aberrations that needed to be removed. Hero eventually learns that Yorick survived and begins to search for him. Agent 355, or sometimes referred to as just 355, is part of the Culper Ring and is assigned by Yorick's mother to escort him to Boston. The Culper Ring dates back to the American Revolution and has played a key but secret part in American history. Dr. Allison Mann, yes, I guess Brian K. Vaughan couldn't resist with her surname, is a geneticist in Boston when the plague began. We meet her and her questionable ethics as she is about to give birth to her own clone. Obviously, she's trying to keep that a secret. She is regarded as a top scientist in her field and thought to be one of the few people who can figure out why the plague happened. I have several criticisms of some components of this graphic novel, but I would still recommend it. It was first published 2 decades ago, so some of the conversations are a bit dated. Something that I was looking forward to with the adaptation was how they updated and potentially fixed some of the problems, but they didn't have much of a chance since it was canceled. Who knows, maybe someone will pick it back up. I was excited to see how they address trans people. The graphic novel does address some issues concerning biological sex and gender, though. I was fortunate to read this book with a group of entirely women through Acme Comics, but that was almost a decade ago. It would be interesting to discuss these issues now, in 2022, since jargon and representation are progressing. Will Yorick find Beth? Will Dr. Mann discover the cause of the plague? Find out by checking out the graphic novels today. Or check out some other graphic novels like Watchmen or Hawkeye.